Welcome to The Explainer. I think we all remember that friction of stepping into our early 20s, right? Craving independence, but still trying to figure out how the real world actually works. Well, today we're looking at that universal transition through the eyes of an amazing 24-year-old woman named Gabria. She lives in South Plainfield, New Jersey, she has Down syndrome, and she recently finished a post-secondary transition program. But listen, we are not treating this like some clinical case study, not at all. Instead, we're going to channel her voice, her ambitions, and her everyday reality to see what crossing the threshold into true adulthood really looks like.
Okay, let's dive into this incredibly powerful quote from Gabria herself. I want to grow and develop myself in lessons that fit my passions. Right off the bat, this tells you exactly who she is. She's a highly motivated young woman who knows exactly what she wants. She isn't just looking to be handed a standard diploma or a basic participation certificate and call it a day. No way. She's looking for legitimate adult growth that actually aligns with the things she cares deeply about. This is the absolute foundation of her adult identity.
Section 1. Meet Gabria, Passions and Goals.
To really understand Gabriella, you have to understand what drives her. She's this vibrant, multifaceted person with a totally awesome array of creative passions. We're talking dancing, acting, decorating, writing, and even psychology. I mean, who wouldn't want a resume like that? In her day-to-day life at home, she's fairly independent with basic self-care, and she helps her parents out with household chores like setting the table. But it's worth noting she doesn't have a lot of experience managing money on her own yet, and relies heavily on her parents for financial oversight. So she has these really strong capabilities right alongside areas where she definitely still needs support. And she's actually super specific about her educational goals. She flat out says, I do not want to go to school for the full package, nor do I aim to get a diploma. Gabria did great in the highly structured, routine-based vocational environments when she was younger, but she is completely done with that chapter of her life. She wants to skip the traditional broad-stroke schooling. Instead, she wants targeted lessons that feed her creative capabilities. She wants to be recognized for her actual talents, not just shuttled through another standardized life skills module.
Section 2. The Transportation Standstill.
And this brilliantly illustrates the contrast between her past success and her current struggles. Like I mentioned, during school, Gabriel really thrived. Highly supervised, structured life skills training, she nailed it. But the catch is, those environments offered almost zero exposure to real-world variability. Now that she's out of that system, she's having a really tough time transferring those skills into unpredictable, everyday community situations. The real world doesn't run on a neat little school bell schedule, And that sudden lack of structure is currently leading to a lot of isolation. Let's break down the physical barriers keeping her at this standstill. Gabrielle lives in suburban Middlesex County. Now, her home life gives her a wonderful sense of security, absolutely, but it offers very few opportunities for independent problem solving. Why? Because suburbia is incredibly car-dependent. There's no walkable train station. She can't independently hop on a bus. And sure, her family knows about accessible services like Access Link, but the intense planning and coordination required makes it super challenging to use consistently. So she's essentially completely isolated from the urban centers where all her acting and dancing classes are. And let's be real, relying entirely on your parents for a ride everywhere at 24, that's frustrating for anyone. Because of all this suburban gridlock, she has zero paid work experience outside of highly supervised settings and no connection to local adult programs right now.
Section 3. Emerging Interests in Dating.
Just listen to how beautifully she frames her social goals here. I want to work together with others who share these passions, and I want to get to know the city and its citizens. She actively wants connection. She wants to meet peers naturally, through dance classes or volunteer events. And it goes beyond just making friends. She's explicitly expressed curiosity about dating and romance. She talks openly about wanting a boyfriend one day. She wants to be part of a community where those kinds of relationships can just naturally blossom. Which brings us to a huge, glaring issue. Why avoid the conversation? Gabria gets understandably frustrated, and rightly so. She wants to be treated like the 24-year-old adult that she is. Yet whenever conversations about dating or romance come up, the people around her tend to actively avoid it or quickly redirect the subject. Just imagine being 24, wanting to explore romantic relationships, and having everyone around you constantly brush it off. It feels deeply dismissive of her adult identity.
Section 4. The Parent Perspective Gap.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the understandable clash of priorities happening behind the scenes. On one side, you have Gabriel's intense desire for exploration, independence, and adult relationships. On the other side, you have her loving, highly involved parents whose absolute top priority is safety, predictability, and long-term security.
They genuinely want her to have meaningful friendships and adult experiences, but their protective instincts are just incredibly strong. Plus, navigating the maze of adult services has left them feeling completely overwhelmed. And the thing is, both perspectives here are totally valid. That's exactly what makes this dynamic so complex.
Let's look at exactly what her parents are worried about. When it comes to dating and independent decision-making, a whole new wave of incredibly complex questions pops up. We're talking online communication and privacy, the very real risk of manipulation or exploitation, her understanding of consent, and how to navigate relationship boundaries. And these fears, they are totally grounded in reality. Up to this point, Gabria has only really been taught basic safety rules. She lacks formal education on healthy relationships and sexuality. Her parents desperately want to protect her, but they're stuck trying to figure out how to support her adult identity without unnecessarily limiting her autonomy.
Section 5. Defining true adulthood.
So the crucial point is, we really need to reevaluate these traditional, purely vocational checklists that so many transition programs rely on. Adulthood literally cannot just be about finding a job, riding a bus, or mastering basic life skills. Yes, meaningful employment and transportation are vital, but a truly holistic transition must actively include social participation, community integration, sexuality, privacy, family collaboration, and supported decision-making. And maybe most importantly, it has to include the dignity of risk, the right to try, to make mistakes, and to learn from them, just like any other young adult. Social participation and relationship development aren't extra optional perks. They are fundamental, meaningful parts of being an adult.
So I want to leave you with this lingering, provocative question. Gabria's story is a direct challenge to society, and especially to professionals like occupational therapists. How can we support the dignity of risk and honor her identity as a young adult without unnecessarily limiting her autonomy? How do we bridge the massive gap between her undeniable potential and the protective standstill she's currently trapped in? It's something we all absolutely need to think deeply about, not just for Gabria, but for how we view independence and empowerment in our own communities. Thanks so much for joining me to explore Gabria's story today, and I really hope this leaves you looking at the transition to adulthood in a whole new light.